Okay, today is the 8th session of our meditation seminar. We have been discussing the yamas and the niyamas, the 5 yamas and the 5 niyamas. And we took a short break the last time, and we discussed the devotion to a divine being, a relationship with God, as one of the 5 niyamas. Today we're going to go back to the yamas, the things that we need to control. We already spoke about violence, lying, stealing, and jealousy. And the 5th matter of control is called the brahmacharya, which is interpreted in various ways, all the way from total sexual abstinence to sexual moderation or a logical sexual life. So we're going to discuss today the role of sex, the role of erotas, I don't know what the English word be for erotas, falling in love, and pure love, in relationship to meditation and in relationship to our spiritual growth process. We noticed that actually most religions and most monasteries have the attitude that sex is something which needs to be either controlled completely or in moderation in order for spiritual growth to take place. Now there are many concepts about sex. I'll read you a list of various thoughts which come into my mind, depending on who the person is. One concept is that it's a sin if it's not for creating children. Another is that it's made pure by the sacrament of marriage, and if it's outside of marriage, it's not. Another is that it's okay anytime if there is love, whether in marriage or not marriage. Another is that it's a sacred act of union between 2 conscious beings. Another concept is that it's good for one's health. Another is that it wastes precious vital energy, which could be directed in other directions. This is more so for the man than for the woman. Another concept is that it should be totally free, that there should be no limitations whatsoever, and that if one suppresses one's sexual energy, that it could create physical or psychological damage. Another concept that it's okay for men to have extramarital relationships, but not for women. Another is that it's okay for men and women. Another is that it's not okay for anybody. That erotas, or falling in love with, or becoming infatuated with someone, I guess would be the English way of expressing it, is a sacred joy in life, and it's worth experiencing and feeling, and like whatever the cost may be. Another concept about sex is that one's manhood or womanhood is measured by one's sexuality, or by one's sexual success, or one's attractiveness to the opposite sex. Another concept is that real love encompasses and transcends sex and infatuation, or erotas. And another concept is that the sexual energy can be transmuted and transformed into spiritual energy if someone is able to meditate on that and work on making that transformation. So we can experience the need for contact with another person from various levels of consciousness. One level of consciousness is the survival instinct, that we are attracted to the opposite sex, and we are attracted physically, because otherwise the race wouldn't continue. So one aspect is totally biological. Another aspect for the human being is the pleasure aspect, the experience of the pleasure involved, and also, I would say, the energy exchange, the energy release, the energy distribution, that the energy in the body is redistributed. Another aspect beyond the biological and the pleasure and the energy is the ego affirmation. That is, I am affirmed by being desired by another person. I feel that that person loves me, cares for me, is interested in me, and if it doesn't happen for a long time, I can feel doubt about my self-worth. So it's an affirmation process. Also, it can be a control game in relationships. One wants to control the other in certain ways, using it, not giving the sexual contact unless we get something, playing games around this. It's a tension-releasing process. Many tensions are released. It can be a form of one of the highest forms of expression of love and unity between two people. So the question is, how can we find our balance in this? How much is it helping us? How much is it obstructing us? And how can someone on the spiritual path or in the path of meditation find some balance in this aspect of his or her life? I'd like to define these three levels of attraction. First of all, sex can exist without infatuation or erotas or love. And then it has very little value. It may release some tensions, but it certainly doesn't give us the emotional or spiritual benefit. Infatuation, or being in love with someone, can also bring benefits from the sense that we feel a great admiration for someone, we feel great happiness in being with someone. We see many positive qualities in this person, and but this creates a form of attachment and enthusiasm which usually doesn't last. The attachment may last, but the enthusiasm doesn't usually last. And so then the relationship is in a situation where it either has to move to love, or it becomes a very dead kind of relationship in which there's not the infatuation anymore, but we haven't moved on to the level of loving the other person, but we're still not as enthusiastic as we were. So sex is something which has a very short effect. This being in love has a longer effect, and loving someone purely has an eternal effect. So loving them regardless of their attributes, because when we're in love with somebody, we're in love with certain attributes that they have. And when we see that they have other attributes which are not so exciting to us, don't make us so happy, then it's very easy to get out of love and this kind of infatuation. So we have to move to another level where we love the other person regardless of the attributes. They will have some positive things which make us happy and some other things which make us unhappy. We have to move from infatuation to love. Now, what are some of the disadvantages of sex without love? One is that I cannot see the other being as a soul, or perhaps even as a personality in some cases. I see them as an object for the fulfillment of my needs. So I can't connect with this person on a higher level. A second aspect is that when I have sexual contact, our auras, or our energy fields, or our emotional bodies become open to each other, which means that I am in a state of being affected by how this person reacts. I become much more susceptible to this person's energy, thoughts, beliefs, and emotional state. Now, this is not a problem at all when I have decided to use my relationship with this person as a spiritual growth process. So being open to this person and being affected by this person's behavior becomes a stimulus for my growth. So every time I'm unhappy about something, I have the opportunity to analyze myself, to see what my attachment is, what my fears are, where I'm being ego-centered, and I can grow. Whereas when I have sex with someone with whom I am not committed to growing with, or going through that relationship, then what's happening is I'm being affected by this other person's emotional states without working on them. And so this creates a number of inner conflicts and a psychic draining of our emotional body. Now, if this happens, if we happen to have more than one relationship at a particular time, having contact with more than one person, then this problem multiplies and our energy level is definitely depleted. And when we're sitting trying to meditate, or trying in any way to arrive to a higher level of consciousness, it's difficult for our mind to disengage itself from all of the emotional activity which is created by opening ourselves sexually to these people, or emotionally then to these people. So one very clear issue is that it's better for there not to be sex if there is not a love commitment in that relationship. If I haven't chose that I am interested in investigating making this a conscious love relationship through which I can grow, regardless of the sacrament of marriage. I don't think that's extremely important, but the idea that I have committed myself to taking this relationship seriously. Otherwise, it will be a draining factor on our emotional and spiritual life. Another factor is that it can become addictive, so that we have no other way of balancing our energy, so that when we don't have the release of the sexual activity, then we start to have negative emotions or frustrations and these kinds of feelings. So it's fine. So it's fine if we can have it, but if it becomes an addiction and we can't have it, then this creates various emotional problems. Now, on the other hand, sexual contact and infatuation can also be a very healing process. For someone who is feeling separate and isolated, it is definitely a moment in which he feels unity. For someone who has not got a good self-image, his self-image is improved by the fact there is someone who wants to be with him and who desires him and respects him and wants to engage in this intimate contact with him. Someone who is blocked physically has his blockages released, and his energy, his body, experiences a greater flow, a freer flow of energy. Obviously, it's the only way to create children. Well, not anymore, perhaps. It used to be the only way to create children, or basic way. It's the most traditional way to create children. Okay? And also, there is a factor of discharging the polarity. You see, we are born with a certain polarity, physically and psychologically, as men and women, male and female, which in the process of our growth, eventually we need to incorporate both male and female qualities. But until we do that, we are more fortified, we are more polarized to one type of energy or the other. When we come in contact with the opposite sex, this polarization disappears and we are completed in that process. Our energy becomes depolarized. Now, this could also happen by communicating through words, by massage, by holding the other person, by coming into any kind of deep energy contact with the other person. But because many couples don't have very much emotional contact or very much affection, the sexual act becomes the only way they become balanced. And this, at least for the man, has the tendency to lessen his energy level. I've also heard women say the same, that their energy level is lessened to some degree, but it's more so for the man. Whereas intimate contact, physical contact, holding, caressing, even kissing or loving, or just being in that contact so that the energy field of the one person unites with the energy field of the other person and creates this feeling of unity and oneness, could create the balancing of that polarity without the loss of energy. So there are some couples on the spiritual path who choose to engage in intimate physical contact without always coming to orgasm, because this allows them to energize themselves, to experience the balancing of the energy, to experience the unity of the energy without the loss which is sometimes associated with the orgasm. Actually, also there are tantric techniques in which a couple can engage themselves, in which they would come into full sexual contact, but without movement and without seeking orgasm, and just remain in that union until the energy began to pass through them. And what they do is they experience an emotional orgasm or a spiritual orgasm rather than a physical one. And this enhances both of their spiritual levels and enhances the meditation, because that energy can now be directed in a more spiritual direction rather than it being released. Because what is an orgasm? An orgasm is the discharge of energy, which is also accompanied with discharge of fluids, but a discharge of energy from one of the chakras. Okay, so that could be from the second chakra if it's sexual, or it can be an orgasm of love, or an orgasm of light, an orgasm of ecstasy, as some people have experienced, as we read some experiences of some saints in meditation or in prayer who had various spiritual experiences. So the same energy which is overflowing from the second chakra, second center, creating the physical or the biological orgasm, could be raised to a level so that one could have an orgasm listening to music, in meditation, in nature, in dancing and creating. That is, to experience the overflow of energy through a higher energy center. So one of the things we might want to consider in our relationships is how we can create that same sense of balance, emotionally and physically, with intimate physical contact, without having to arrive to the level of the orgasm, which often has the result of losing energy. Now, I admit that this is more a problem for men than it is for women. But I have also heard some women express that it is a problem for them too. They lose energy through that process. So it's very possible that as we evolve spiritually, that we could come to a state in which we'll be experiencing that kind of pleasure and that kind of satisfaction and that kind of oneness, because really the orgasm is about that too. It's about experiencing oneness through other chakras, either through our love or through our mental awareness or through our feelings of unity with the environment. Now, this process of Tantra is not very easy, because our bodies are programmed to go towards orgasm. So it requires quite a bit of conscious awareness to be able to remain, on the one hand, excited and aware, and on the other hand, just experiencing that. You see. The other thing that's required is that one would have to have a pure body, meaning that he would have to have cut out meat, alcohol, cigarettes, all these things that we have mentioned for being pure so that the energy can rise up through the centers would need to be employed. Yeah? And one would obviously have to be a meditator so that one can focus on the centers. What we do is we arouse the energy. It's like the contact becomes a generator for the energy, and we remain in contact, and then we bring our focus to the heart center and bring our focus to the forehead center, so that now the energy which has been generated at the second level of consciousness is rising up to the fourth, rising up to the forehead. So it's like you get a generator going, and then you move the energy up into other centers. Now this, of course, requires that the partner is interested in doing this and willing to do this. You laugh. So this is it requires the cooperation of the other person. Now in yoga, it's considered, and it's also mentioned in Patanjali's sutras, that this energy, this sperm energy, especially for the man, but also for the woman, can be transmuted into spiritual energy. It's called ojas, this new energy, which is created by the transmutation of the sexual energy, becomes a very powerful spiritual energy, which one can feel in the aura of that person, in the light which comes out from that person, and also from that person's power of speaking. That is, the person's, it's transferred through his speaking to the people around him. Now, concerning the polarity, the soul is neither male nor female. The soul is neutral. It's neuter. In each incarnation we choose a particular gender which serves the purpose of the lessons that we need to learn or want to learn in that incarnation. So we have in us also the memory of all of our incarnations of the opposite sex. Jung referred to this as the animus and the anima. So the anima in the man is the memory of all of his feminine qualities from previous incarnations, and the animus in the woman is the memory of all of the male qualities from those male incarnations. The ultimate goal is to become totally balanced, to balance the male and the female qualities, to incorporate all of the positive aspects of the male and all of the positive aspects of the female, with the sensitivity, with the love, with the caring, with the strength, with the clarity, all of those, the creativity, all of those aspects together in one being, regardless of that being's gender. So this also may be an explanation for homosexuality. For example, it's not the only explanation for homosexuality, but it is one possible explanation. That is, if a soul has had a number of incarnations as a male and suddenly takes on a female body, there may be a certain momentum in male qualities which is not easy for that soul to reject. And so it may feel, although the body may be female, she may feel more male. And the opposite, for example, a soul which had many incarnations as a female takes on a first incarnation in a long time as a male, may feel female although it's in a male body. You see, so the psyche, the psychology, this is not the only reason. Childhood experiences can create this. There's nothing inherently wrong with homosexuality. It's just that the being is not experiencing the dharma of the body, because the body has its own dharma. It has its own place in the universe. It's not a matter of sin any more than it is. It's just more a matter of not being in harmony with the lessons which I have come to learn in this life. Of course, being a homosexual can offer many lessons also to anyone who experiences that in their lives, because there's the experience of being on the border of society, of being rejected, of confronting one's feelings. There are definitely lessons and growth through that also. So, we might compare sex, infatuation, or erotas, and love to the waves on the sea. We might say that the foam on the waves is the sex. It's very impressive, but it's short-lived. The wave itself is the erotas, or the infatuation, and the sea is the love. So one is more long-lasting and deeper than the other. The wave, the infatuation lasts a month, 2 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years. It doesn't usually last much longer than that. Whereas love can last forever. I would see sex and erotas as stepping stones to love. That it's the first attracting power, the first attracting mechanism which attracts us to the other being, what makes us want to unite our lives with them, and then in that unity we are faced with the whole problem of learning to love this person unconditionally. Okay, so at first we're attracted, and then we get into the learning process, yeah? And then we go through this whole process of growing in this way. Now this is the purpose of it. We have free will. We can choose not to grow in this case. So how can we interpret this fifth yama, the yama called brahmacharya? Actually, let's look at the word brahmacharya. Brahma is the name of God, and the charya means to be close to, be a relative of. So it doesn't mean, brahmacharya doesn't mean abstinence from sex. It means being close to God. Yeah. So it could mean what it really means is not being involved in any infatuation, in any attachment or addiction which makes me stop seeing the divine. Because that could be a person, it could be sex, it could be food, it could be drink, it could be anything which infatuates my senses and makes me forget the presence of the divine. And this is why Tantra is the solution, because in Tantra the whole idea is that when I unite with my partner, I'm uniting with an incarnation of the divine. I'm uniting with the Divine Mother. I'm uniting with the Divine Father. And I'm becoming one with God as I unite with this person. This is the whole concept of Tantra, which can also be applied to food. I am eating God. This food is a manifestation of God, just as my partner is a manifestation of God. So the whole idea of brahmacharya is not so much not to have sexual contact, or not to eat, or not to do any of these things. It's to be aware of the divine when I am engaged in these sensual inputs. So it has to do with sensual inputs and not losing the awareness of the divine when I'm engaged in sensual pleasure. And that's the whole idea of Tantra. So what can we say here about how we can interpret brahmacharya in our Western lives? The possibility of totally transmuting this sexual energy is quite difficult. It's quite difficult, and probably one would have to be in a monastery. If he watches television, if he reads newspapers, if he reads magazines, if he looks at billboards, the whole society is created in such a way as to continuously stimulate. You want to sell jam, you put a sexy woman on the cover of it. Anything you want to sell, whether it's a car, anything, a cigarette. The whole society has focused on this center in order to sell what they want to sell. in movies continuously we are programmed that people live their lives and people make love at least 20 times a week, and that a viral person will be making love every day, when the reality is not this, you see. So it's probably unreasonable to think about the possibility of living in this society and completely being able to transmute the energy. So how can we find a balance in this? One balance is that if we are not married, then we should be very clear about having sex only with someone with whom we feel that we are interested in creating a conscious love relationship, and that we are wanting to use this relationship also for our growth process. And it's not simply a physical release, because this will create various problems as far as our spiritual growth is concerned. It's also, you can get ill. It's not the creation of AIDS and these kinds of diseases is not by chance. It's a direct reaction towards a man's behavior in the last 30 years, you see. So it's not by chance that this was created so as to make people think twice about just sleeping with anyone, anytime. As far as when we are in a relationship, we might consider the possibility of finding other ways also to exchange this energy and to depolarize ourselves, such as hugging, holding, communicating, giving massage, dancing. And if the partner is interested, we might even consider this concept of Tantra. I have a couple of articles from magazines which describe the whole process, if anyone knows that they have a partner that's interested in this, and which describes step by step how one can come into contact and then try to work on raising the energy to the level of consciousness. So that, and more frequent exchanging of energy, saying positive things to the other person, affirming the other person, telling the other person what we admire in them, touching the other person. It's not that, we're these separate beings all week long until we come together and then we have this passionate release. It should be a constant flowing of energy throughout the day, of affirming and letting this energy flow between us. Of course, now some problems are created as one person begins to feel less need than the other person. And this could happen completely independently of any spiritual process. There are most couples at some point experience this problem, one or the other, from lack of energy, because they're not feeling well emotionally with the other person, they're feeling hurt, or they're giving all their energy in another direction, begins to feel less need than the other. And then this vicious circle is created because the other feels rejection, starts to doubt whether the other person also has this biological pressure or emotional pressure building up in them. That causes them to pressure the other person more, which causes the other person even to not be able to accept affection, of being afraid of the fact that the affection is going to lead to sexual feelings, which causes the first person who needs the contact to feel more rejected, because not only he's not getting the sexual fulfillment, but he's not even allowed to have affection or contact because the other person is afraid where it will lead, and it leads to serious problems in the relationship. So in such a case, it's necessary for the couple to discuss. It's very important for the person who is feeling less need to explain to the other person that it's not that I'm rejecting you. I do love you. I do care for you. It's just that, I haven't got a button that I can push to feel this way or feel the other way. It's just something's happening. But also to discuss the possibility of allowing affection, so that at least there can be affection or hugging or holding, and the other person agreeing, okay, I'm not going to let it get sexual. So that at least there can be this exchange of energy if one of them is not feeling that they want that to move on to a sexual level. You see? Because what happens is that they become emotionally cut off, physically cut off, and it creates a lot of problem in the relationship. Now, another thing that we need to avoid at all costs is simultaneous relationships. It creates a lot of problems in the conscience, it creates problems in the energy, and of course, we are doing to someone something we would not like them to do to us. So this would be the most destructive way of handling our sex life, by having a simultaneous relationship with someone. I mentioned to you for each of the yamas and niyamas the result of perfecting it, and the result of perfecting this, but this is, as far as Patanjali is concerned, the abstinence and of sexual contact and the transformation of the sexual energy, which I think for most people in this society is not very possible, is the creation of a tremendous amount of spiritual energy, spiritual power, which might even allow that being to be able to do what we call miracles, to create things, to heal. This energy then becomes a spiritual energy which could be used for healing, helping people understand things through words. It becomes a spiritual power, which we have seen in many saints who have taken this path. Okay? So today's discussion was about the fifth yama. The other four are controlling our violence, controlling our lies, controlling our stealing, controlling our jealousy, and controlling our sexual energy. Okay? So this is the first step of yoga, and it's the first step towards meditation. Where you exist in your own personal lives, in relationship to this, you know, and you will have to find your own balance. We also mentioned that there are many positive aspects of coming into sexual contact, the balancing, the emotional, the unity, the spiritual unity. So you'll have to find your own balance in your own life situation on this. Let me remind you of the process of meditation, and then we'll have any questions after the meditation. The process is that we are doing our alternate breathing, then we are making our prayer, each one his own way of communicating with God. Then we are moving through the body, checking out any sources of tension, releasing them. Then we are focusing on the light. We are moving the light throughout the body and then around the body. And then we are focusing on our chosen object of concentration, as I mentioned to you 2 weeks ago. And then we stay with that object of concentration. Now it's very important not to pressure the mind and not to get into a state of frustration or anger or feeling of failure, because this is one of the main traps. So just very calmly and lovingly, when you see that the mind has moved away from the object of concentration, bring it back to what we have decided to focus on. Do not become upset, do not become angry, do not get into a sense of failure. Okay? So if you'd like to take your positions, we will now move into the meditation. Okay. Take your position with the spine straight, the eyes closed. Focus on your breathing. Breathing more slowly and more deeply. Now, whenever you feel ready, you can begin the alternate breathing, changing nostrils. As you inhale into the solar plexus, hold the energy in the heart center. Exhale, allowing the energy to flow up through the neck, and holding the suspension of the breath in the forehead. Alternate nostrils as you focus on the movement of the energy from one center to the other. Continue breathing slowly, deeply. can gradually complete your alternate breathing. Check your body, let it be straight. And take a few minutes to communicate with God in your own way concerning whatever is most important for you. Now, you can check the body, allowing it to become more straight and more relaxed. Allow your legs to be relaxed. Feel the muscles of your abdomen. Allow them to relax. Feel the solar plexus. Allow it to relax. Feel your shoulders. Allow the shoulders to relax. Allow your neck muscles to relax. Feel the muscles of your face. Allow the jaw to relax. Allow the cheeks to relax. Allow the eyes to relax. Now focus on your forehead. Allow it to relax. And become aware of the sensation of light in the center of your forehead. And allow the light to flow throughout your cranium, passing into your brain, bringing peace to all the cells of the brain. Now allow the light to flow down into your neck and shoulders, relaxing them. Allow the sensation of light to flow into your arms, into your chest area. Allow light to fill your chest area. Allow it to pass into the solar plexus, relaxing the solar plexus. Allow the light to flow into your abdominal area. And into your legs. So that all of your body, from the bottom of your feet to the top of your head, is permeated by the sensation of light. And if there are any parts of your body which are resisting, let them open now and receive this light vibration. Allow the light to expand and encircle the body. can focus on the divine in your own unique way. Focus on your chosen object of concentration, bringing your mind lovingly to that over and over again. Okay, first of all, any questions about the meditative process, about your meditation, either here or at home? Any problems, any obstacles?
Question. In terms of getting towards the ultimate breathing and the energy to come up through various centers, I don't feel anything. I think about each of those centers and they're in that part of the breathing, but are you supposed to feel some noticeable change?
Yeah, eventually you should feel some kind of phenomena in each center as you move your awareness from one center to the other. Some could be energy, could be heat, could be some sensation. Eventually it will come. Anything else you want to? Yeah, I think that you can feel them, yeah. Anything else about the meditation? Okay, about today's subject, about sex, erotas, or agape?
About the energy field, the aura being open. And then you become attracted to the person first, and the other person first.
Yeah. Because
your aura becomes open, his aura.
Yes, yeah.
And so what happens if you become open in space?
Well, if the other person's state is positive, it's fine. But if the other person is feeling hurt or angry or is rejecting us, we are much more affected than if we are being rejected by, or much more rejected by being in the presence of someone who we have not had this intimate contact. You see. We're much more susceptible to this person's negativity.
I mean, you're more susceptible, not only to his negativity, you're just susceptible to his pain.
Yes. You're open.
Yeah, not only for your feelings for you, but in general, as another person, you're not susceptible to what is happening inside you or her.
You may be also more aware. I mean, if they're not smiling, it's difficult to be happy. You want to know what's happening. There's a certain amount of attachment is created. And to a certain degree, we start feeling responsible for their reality and are affected much more by their opinions or their feelings. Which in a conscious growth relationship is no problem. It's a stimulus for growth. But if it's just a superficial relationship, and we're not working on growing through that, then it can be quite draining.
That's quite interesting what you said before about the fact that age, because of the exposed on sex and society. Does that mean that probably the one who has feel for age for quite a long time?
Probably, because it's serving its purpose. It's unfortunate that some people have to suffer so much. But it's creating, it has made people think much more seriously about the idea of free sex, which is sex for sex sake.
It's interesting in relation to the African countries, though, was it, because I don't know, maybe it's wrong, but I believe that this tremendous emphasis on sex, justice, and enjoyment, etc., was more in the Western world.
It's true, but there's a quite free sexual life in Africa.
Do you think that in certain times,
How was what?
have free sex too? Or was there
Probably until the family structure was created. In the beginning, there probably was no family structure. Then maybe could be one man with 4 or 5 wives. Most ancient societies the male had more than one wife in the past. I think there may have been some societies in which women had more men, but I think most societies were like that. And gradually the one man, one woman family started to develop in later years. And then, of course, you went through many years of more Puritan kind of perception of sex. And then I think it's gone through cycles. I've not studied the history of sex, so I would have to make a study. It's been given much more importance, perhaps, than really should be given to it. And then, yeah, that's created a lot of problems. Anything else you want to speak about before we finish for today? Okay, so we can close that. We